Most people do not lose their energy by accident, they lose it by breakfast. They wake up late, eat whatever is quick, drink whatever is sweet, grab whatever is soft, and then by the middle of the morning they feel strangely flat, not hungry enough to call it hunger, not sick enough to call it illness, just a little foggy, a little short-tempered, a little restless, a little more ready than they should be for another cup, another snack, another bite of something they did not even want. And because that feeling is so common now, people have stopped noticing how unnatural it is. They think that is what mornings feel like. They think that is what getting older feels like. They think that is what busy life does to a body. A great many times it is nothing so mysterious. A great many times it is only a poor breakfast finishing too soon. Before I go one step farther, let me say this plainly. I am not Dr. John. I am not diagnosing you. I am not treating disease. I am not giving you a medical prescription, and if Dr. John has already told you to eat in a particular way, then that comes first. You listen to Dr. John. But if what you want is a clear, practical way to think about the first meal of the day, then I can help you with that. Because there are simple foods people have leaned on for generations, and they still work now just as well as they worked then. Not miracle foods, not expensive powders, not bright packets with health words printed on the front. Just ordinary foods that support a steadier body, a quieter appetite, and a better morning. And I want to give you 10 of them. But before I name a single one, understand the rule behind all 10, because if you miss the rule, the list will not help you much. The best morning foods do not merely taste good for 5 minutes. They do not only wake your mouth up. They do not simply entertain you. They do a job. They digest at a reasonable pace. They offer protein, fiber, nourishment, sometimes healthy fat, and enough real substance that your body does not start begging for more an hour later. They create a morning that feels even instead of jagged. That is the whole idea. You do not need a magical breakfast. You need a breakfast that behaves well inside a human body. And once you understand that, you begin to see why so many modern breakfasts fail. They are designed to be quick, pleasant, soft, easy, sweet, and forgettable. They go down fast. They ask very little chewing. They often leave very little behind except a brief lift and a later drop. They are comforting in the moment and unhelpful shortly after. A breakfast like that does not prepare you for the day. It merely delays your next craving. So as I go through these 10 foods, do not ask only whether they sound healthy in theory. Ask something simpler. Ask whether they help build a morning that stays steady. The first is eggs. There is a reason eggs have lasted as a morning food across generations, across countries, across incomes, across styles of cooking. They are one of the rare foods that are easy, familiar, versatile, satisfying, and actually useful. Eggs bring real protein. They can help you feel fed instead of merely occupied. They are soft enough to be pleasant, rich enough to be satisfying, and simple enough that you do not need a nutrition degree to understand them. A breakfast built around eggs often feels different from a breakfast built around sugar. The difference is not dramatic in a theatrical way. It is not fireworks. It is quieter than that. Your thoughts feel a little more stable. Your hunger arrives later. Your patience lasts longer. You are less likely to start foraging through the kitchen before lunch as if something went missing in the morning. And eggs are not difficult. Scrambled slowly, boiled the night before, fried with a little care, folded into an omelet with spinach or onions, laid over toast, eaten with beans. Paired with fruit, they fit into almost any life. For many people, 2 eggs in the morning change the whole shape of the first half of the day. The second is oats. Not dessert pretending to be oats, not tiny flavored sachets that carry more sweetness than substance. I mean plain oats that still behave like a real food. Oats are one of the steadiest breakfast foundations you can build because they bring fiber, warmth, volume, and a kind of slow, useful energy that does not rush through you all at once. When oats are left relatively plain and paired well, they can be one of the most economical and effective breakfasts a person can eat. A bowl of oats asks you to slow down just enough to remember what food is supposed to do. It does not shout at you. It does not come in bright colors. It does not arrive with cartoon promises. It simply does its work, and there is a great deal to be said for foods that do their work without needing applause. They pour in so much sugar, syrup, chocolate, or processed toppings that the original food is hardly there anymore. That is not a problem with oats. That is a problem with what got poured over them. A bowl of oats with cinnamon, berries, seeds, or a spoon of nut butter is one thing. A bowl of oats disguised as cake is another. The third is plain yogurt, especially Greek yogurt or unsweetened dahi. There are foods that fill the stomach quickly and are forgotten quickly, and there are foods that feel composed. Yogurt, when you buy the plain kind and build it yourself, is a composed food. It gives protein. It can pair well with fruit, seeds, nuts, and spices. It can help make a breakfast feel cool, clean, and complete rather than heavy and sloppy. And for many people it is easier to eat on a rushed morning than a cooked breakfast, which matters. Good advice that does not fit ordinary life often becomes useless advice. But it must be plain. Once the sugar has been mixed in for you, once the flavoring has done the talking, once the fruit has turned into syrup at the bottom of the cup, you are often no longer eating the food you thought you were buying. You are eating a sweet product with a health costume on it. That is how a lot of people get misled. They do not mean to choose badly, they simply trust the packaging. Plain yogurt with berries and seeds is a real breakfast component. Sweetened dessert yogurt in a small plastic cup is usually a different thing entirely. The fourth is berries. There are sweeter foods in the world, of course, but berries are one of the best examples of how nature can satisfy a craving without turning it into a problem. They bring color, freshness, fiber, and a sweetness that does not need to be apologized for. They are one of the easiest ways to make a healthy breakfast feel inviting without surrendering the whole meal to sugar. Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, fresh if you have them, frozen if that is what is available. It does not have to be precious. You do not need them arranged beautifully. You do not need a wooden spoon and a sunlit kitchen to make them count. You simply need to add them to something sensible. Oats, yogurt, cottage cheese, chia pudding, even eggs with fruit on the side. Their job is not only taste, their job is to make a good choice easier to keep making. And that matters, because the best breakfast is not always the most technical one. Often it is the one you will actually repeat. The fifth is nuts. A small handful of nuts can do more for the structure of a breakfast than people often realize. Almonds, walnuts, pistachios, peanuts, cashews, not candied, not glazed, not turned into a carnival snack. Plain or lightly salted nuts bring crunch, healthy fats, a bit of protein, and staying power. They make light breakfasts more durable. They help turn "I ate something" into "I am properly fed." There is a reason nuts work so well in the morning. They slow things down. They ask your body to deal with something substantial. They also help with satisfaction, which people overlook. Appetite is not only biology, it is psychology too. If breakfast feels thin, watery, childish, or insubstantial, you often go hunting for compensation later. Nuts help remove that sense that something is missing. And if whole nuts are not practical, then a good nut butter can do a similar job. But read what you are buying. There is a world of difference between ground nuts in a jar and a sweet spread that happens to contain some nuts. The sixth is seeds. This is one of the quieter upgrades people can make, because seeds do not look dramatic, yet they change the quality of a breakfast surprisingly well. Chia seeds, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, even a spoon or two can add fiber, texture, nourishment, and more balance to the meal. They are not glamorous. They are not meant to be. Their value is exactly that they slide into ordinary eating without demanding a ceremony around them. Sprinkle them into yogurt, stir them into oats, blend them into a smoothie that is otherwise too fruit-heavy, add them to toast with nut butter. Mix them into cottage cheese. They are useful because they strengthen what is already there. Not every helpful food has to be the star of the show. Some of the best foods simply make other foods behave better, and that is true of healthy mornings in general. Often it is not about finding one perfect item, it is about quietly improving the entire plate. The seventh is real whole grain bread or good sourdough. Now this is where people often get confused, because bread has become a battlefield. Some people treat it as the root of all trouble. Others eat the softest, whitest bread they can find, and assume bread is bread. Neither approach is very useful. A sturdy slice of proper bread is not the same food as ultra-processed white bread that disappears in your mouth before you have even tasted it properly. Good bread has texture. Good bread asks to be chewed. Good bread can stand underneath eggs, avocado, nut butter, cottage cheese, or even a little olive oil and tomato, and make a real breakfast out of very little. It does not need to be feared. It needs to be chosen wisely. The trouble begins when bread becomes an excuse to eat sugar, or when it is so refined that it behaves more like a delivery system for cravings than a meal. But a thoughtful slice or two of whole grain bread or sourdough as part of a broader breakfast can be deeply practical. It is familiar, flexible, and satisfying in a way many modern breakfast substitutes are not. People do well with foods they understand, Bread, when it is real, is still one of those foods. The eighth is avocado. Now avocado has been turned into a fashionable symbol in some places, but underneath all that noise it remains what it has always been, a useful morning food. It gives creaminess, healthy fats, and a sense of completeness to a breakfast that might otherwise feel too sharp or too lean. Half an avocado with eggs, avocado on grainy toast, avocado alongside beans, avocado with a little lemon, salt and chili. None of this is complicated, it is simply effective. One reason avocado works so well is that it softens the edges of a meal without making that meal empty. A lot of processed breakfast foods are soft but nutritionally weak. Avocado is soft and substantial. That distinction matters. Softness is not the enemy, emptiness is. And if avocado is not available where you are, do not miss the larger lesson. The lesson is not that avocado is magical. The lesson is that healthy fats help make a breakfast more satisfying, more settled, and less likely to leave you peering into cupboards 2 hours later. The ninth is cottage cheese or paneer. This one does not get as much attention online as it deserves, perhaps because it is not dramatic enough for marketing. It does not come with wild claims attached. It simply offers a lot of practical value. Cottage cheese is high in protein, easy to pair with sweet or savory ingredients, and often very useful for people who want a breakfast that feels substantial without feeling greasy. Paneer can play a similar role in many kitchens, especially when lightly cooked with vegetables or folded into a savory morning meal. Cottage cheese with berries and seeds, paneer with tomatoes and herbs, cottage cheese on whole grain toast, paneer beside eggs. These are not luxury breakfasts. They are grounded breakfasts. They tell the body, right at the start of the day, that something meaningful has arrived. And that signal matters more than people think. The body responds not only to calories, but to the pattern of what those calories are made of. Protein in the morning can shape appetite differently from pure starch or sugar. Many people discover this only when they finally try it for themselves. The 10th is beans or lentils. Now some people will raise an eyebrow at that because they have been trained to think of breakfast as either sweet or feather light. But there are many parts of the world where beans, lentils, chickpeas, or other legumes in the morning are perfectly normal, and there is good sense in it. They bring fiber, protein, and a kind of staying power that most boxed breakfasts cannot even pretend to match. Beans with eggs, lentils beside toast, chickpeas folded into a savory bowl, leftover dal warmed up with an egg on the side. This is not glamorous content for an advertisement, but it is very often excellent food for an actual person. It feeds rather than flatters. It supports rather than seduces. And that is an important distinction because much of what is sold as breakfast is designed to seduce. It seduces with convenience, with sweetness, with softness, with nostalgia manufactured in a factory, with the promise that you can eat like a child and feel like a disciplined adult. But the body is not fooled for long. The body always tells the truth eventually. Now, if you have paid attention, you will notice that these 10 foods are not random. They overlap. Eggs and yogurt both bring protein. Oats and berries both support steadier energy in different ways. Nuts, seeds, and avocado add texture, nourishment, and satisfaction. Bread, when chosen well, gives structure. Beans and lentils make the whole thing more robust. The point is not that you need all 10. The point is that you build with them. One good breakfast might be eggs with whole grain toast and fruit. Another might be oats with berries, chia seeds, and a spoon of peanut butter. Another might be plain yogurt with walnuts, flaxseed, and strawberries. Another might be paneer with vegetables and a slice of sourdough. Another might be beans with eggs and avocado. Another might be cottage cheese with berries and pumpkin seeds, with toast on the side. You see what is happening. The meal becomes simple without becoming flimsy. It becomes nourishing without becoming theatrical. It becomes repeatable. And repeatable is what matters to use. Breakfast was not entertainment. Breakfast was preparation. Somewhere along the way, preparation got replaced by stimulation. Now people begin the day with foods engineered to vanish quickly, drinks engineered to taste like dessert, and bites so soft and effortless they barely feel like eating. Then they wonder why their focus trembles, why their mood swings, why their cravings arrive early, why another snack starts calling before the morning has even properly opened. Again, I am not saying every problem comes from breakfast. Life is more complicated than that. Sleep matters. Stress matters. Movement matters. Overall diet matters. Medical issues matter. And if there is anything serious going on, you speak to Dr. John. But I am saying this, the first meal of the day sets a tone. It can make the rest of the morning easier or harder. And most people are living with the consequences of that first meal without ever stopping long enough to study them. There is also a deeper emotional truth here. Many people do not want only a healthier breakfast. They want a calmer relationship with food. They want to stop beginning the day in a cycle of spike, dip, craving, regret, and rescue. They want to feel looked after, even if they are the one doing the looking after. They want their first meal to feel like support instead of temptation. That is why this matters. Breakfast is never just breakfast. It is often the opening note of self-respect. And one of the saddest tricks of modern food culture is that it has made support look boring and temptation look fun. It has taught people to treat ordinary nourishing food as if it were a compromise, and highly processed food as if it were a reward. That reversal has done real damage. Because if what truly helps you always feels like deprivation, and what hurts you always feels like comfort, then discipline becomes exhausting. So part of changing breakfast is not only changing ingredients, it is changing emotional meanings. It is learning to see a bowl of oats with fruit and seeds not as a lesser option, but as a strong one. To see eggs and toast not as old-fashioned, but as reliable. To see yogurt, nuts, berries, paneer, beans, and bread not as content trends, but as useful materials for building a better day. That shift is more powerful than it sounds. I remember kitchens, and perhaps you do too, where breakfast was not complicated, but it had a kind of dignity to it. The food was simple, but there was intention in it. Someone had thought ahead. Someone had made sure there would be enough. Someone understood, maybe without using any modern vocabulary, that a person should not be sent out into the world on emptiness and sweetness alone. There was care in that. Not fancy care, not performative care, just practical care. And the body recognizes practical care immediately. You feel it when the meal is balanced. You feel it when the hunger arrives at the right hour instead of barging in early. You feel it when your concentration holds. You feel it when you are not negotiating with a vending machine at 10:30. You feel it when coffee remains a pleasure instead of becoming a rescue mission. That, by the way, is another quiet point worth making. A lot of people think caffeine is their morning savior when in truth it is being asked to cover for a meal that never did its job. Coffee has its place, tea has its place. Many people enjoy them and do perfectly well with them. But they should stand beside breakfast, not act as breakfast's apology. The same can be said for snack culture in general. A great many snacks are really just breakfast consequences dragged forward into the day. If the morning meal is balanced, the rest of the day often becomes easier almost without effort. Not perfect, easier. That is a far more realistic and useful promise. And now I want to tell you something that food companies understand very well, even if most people do not say it out loud. A breakfast that satisfies you thoroughly is not always the most profitable breakfast to sell you. The highly processed kind can be made hyper-palatable, heavily branded, endlessly varied, and sold with emotional language. It can be marketed to your nostalgia, your stress, your convenience, your children, your ambition, your fear, even your health goals. It can be made to look playful or virtuous, depending on what you are most likely to buy. But real food sits there quietly. Eggs do not sing. Oats do not advertise themselves with glitter. Plain yogurt does not flatter you. Beans do not dress themselves up as a reward. Good bread does not beg for attention. They simply remain what they are, waiting for someone sensible to choose them. There is power in learning to prefer quiet foods over loud products. Not because quiet foods are morally pure and products are evil. That is not the argument. The argument is simpler. Quiet foods usually ask less from your nervous system and give more back to your body. Loud products do the opposite. They make more noise at the moment of sale and often leave more trouble afterward. So here is what I would ask you to do, and it is not much. Do not promise yourself a new life. Do not buy 15 ingredients. Do not turn breakfast into a project. Tomorrow morning, choose any 2 or 3 foods from what I have named. Make one solid plate or bowl. Keep it reasonably simple. Include some protein. Include some fiber. If it helps, include some healthy fat. Then eat it without rushing as if you are trying to outrun your own appetite. And after that, pay attention. Notice your energy at mid-morning. Notice whether your mind feels steadier. Notice whether you start searching for sugar out of habit or out of genuine hunger. Notice whether your mood feels more settled. Notice whether your body seems grateful instead of confused. That one morning will tell you more than a week of arguments on the internet. And if you want an easy place to start, here are a few combinations that work well in ordinary life. Scrambled eggs with whole grain toast and berries. Oats with chia seeds, walnuts and sliced banana or berries. Plain yogurt with flaxseed, pumpkin seeds and fruit. Cottage cheese with fruit and a slice of sourdough. paneer with vegetables and toast, beans with eggs and avocado. None of these meals are extreme. None of them require you to become a different person. They simply ask you to begin the day with more wisdom than impulse. That is all a healthy breakfast really is. Wisdom before impulse, substance before stimulation, support before craving. And I suspect many people listening to me were raised closer to that idea than they realize. I suspect there was once a breakfast in your home that was simpler, more solid, and less theatrical than the one many people eat now. Maybe someone made eggs. Maybe there was bread that had to be sliced. Maybe there was yogurt that tasted like itself. Maybe fruit arrived in season and not in syrup. Maybe breakfast was not perfect, but it was recognizable as food. And if that memory is in you, then this is not a foreign lesson. It is a return. Not a return to the past in every way. The past had its own problems, but a return to a saner first meal, a return to the idea that the body deserves steadiness, a return to the understanding that health is often built from ordinary decisions repeated quietly. That is why these 10 foods matter. Not because they are trendy, not because they are photogenic, not because some miracle hides inside them, but because they help you build a morning that does not fight you. And once your mornings stop fighting you, a great many other things become easier. If this reached you at the right time, try it tomorrow and tell me what you noticed. Tell me what you ate. Tell me what breakfast looked like in the house where you grew up. Tell me which foods helped you feel most steady through the morning. I am always interested in the foods people come back to when they stop chasing novelty and start chasing what genuinely helps. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people